welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, I have what feels like a long-awaited collection from OPI, or maybe just long-awaited for me. I have the summer 2024 collection from OPI called My Me Era. Much like the spring collection, OPI said go big or go home with this release. So there are 12 shades in the normal polish line and then 9 shades in the Infinite Shine line. If you are new to the Infinite Shine line, those are polishes that OPI refers to as being gel-like. They are not actually gel polish, they just call it gel-like. Mainstream brands do this for whatever reason. According to OPI, the thought behind this release is all about self-expression, which in case you couldn't tell about me, I am definitely here for. The OPI summer collection is available right now in all the places where OPI is sold. I will have links in the description box to all the places where OPI is sold. Some of those links are affiliate links. If you do want to pick this release up as well as support the channel, feel free to use any of the links I have over in the description box, or you can also use code Nicole Loves Nails to save 10% on the Beyond Polish website. Before we get into the video, I do have a couple of announcements to make in case you missed the previous announcements. This is my first long form video, so I just wanted to mention it since in case people missed it. So 2 announcements. 1, I have a new channel. Earlier in the year, I decided I want to start making some more non-nail polish content. I just decided I'm just going to make a second channel to do that. So if you like some of my non-nail videos and you want to see more of them, please subscribe to my other channel. It is just Nicole Danielson. I have it linked in the description box and it'll be in the end cards as well. Second announcement. Earlier in the year, I changed the YouTube channel name from Nicole Loves Nails to just Nicole Loves because I wanted to do other things besides just nails. Because I've now decided that all that stuff is just going to get housed on a different YouTube channel, this channel's back to being Nicole Loves Nails.
No, my bad, I'm sorry.
I know this is going to be very confusing for some people, but I kind of felt that since all of my other social media were still Nicole Loves Nails, and it was largely just you guys, unfortunately, who got in the habit of calling me Nicole Loves, like, I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. But yes, we are back to Nicole Loves Nails on here, and if you've been enjoying the non-nail stuff, head on over to my second channel. There's already a couple of videos posted over there. There's going to be a new long-form video up over there in a couple of days. Thank you to everyone who's already subscribed to that channel, and everyone who's been enjoying the videos over there. I really appreciate it. I've got a lot of polishes to share with you all today, so as always, links in the description box, social media pages are down there as well, blog posts, everything is in the description box, including timestamps. Let's just get into this video. Going in rainbow order because I can't help myself, we have My Me Era. OPI describes this as a coral pink. The formula on this one was pretty good. My bottle was a little bit on the thicker side, but that was largely due to the fact my initial shipment of this release, one of the polishes broke, and the spilled polish that broke got all up into the neck of this one, and I think it just was not sealed properly before shipping. So I think all of my issues that I had with this polish was largely from where I purchased them and not from the polish itself. I don't really agree with OPI's color description of this one. I can see coral, but I wouldn't call it a pink coral. It's definitely more of a reddish orangey coral than just a pink coral. This one is going to be a 2 to 3 coater depending on your application style. For my full hand swatches, I swatched this one in 3 coats. I think if I had added nail polish thinner to my bottle before I started swatching it, then I would have been able to get it opaque in 2 coats. But again, I'm going to call it a 2 to 3 coater depending on application style. Super easy removal, and I did not personally experience staining. And now we have You've Been Red, which OPI describes as a bright red. You've Been Red had a really nice formula. This is a slightly more sheer red. It kind of has that squishy, jelly-ish kind of formula that some reds often have. I did find that this one also dries down a little bit more sheer than it initially applies. My full hand swatches show this one in 2 coats plus glossy top coat, but when looking at my footage, I can see my nail line coming across a lot more red in this shot here. My full hand swatches show it looking a bit more orange toned. I did find in person that it did lean very orangey. I think this is going to be one of those colors where you're like, oh, is this an orange that leans red, or is it a red that leans orange? I am not generally a huge fan of colors like that, like it's just not my personal vibe. I think this is going to be a 2 to 3 coater depending on how you feel about nail line. Like looking at my footage, I can very clearly see the bruise that I have on my pointer finger. I did not personally experience any staining with this one, but it feels very pigmented, so make sure to wear base coat if you're concerned at all about staining. And now we have Stop at Nothing, which OPI describes as a classic red. Once again, fantastic formula. I found that the formulation of this polish is more in line of what I generally think of when I think of an OPI red cream. It applied so nicely, buttery smooth, and self-leveled perfectly, and it's also actually opaque in 2 coats. While Stop at Nothing does seem to be a lot less orange tone than You've Been Red, I did find that on my skin tone, it still had an orange undertone to it, which again is not really my vibe at all, but I do still think that formula and application were spot on for this one. So for some reason you don't already own an obnoxious amount of red creams, this is not a bad one to grab at all. I do, however, find it super strange to have two red creams in the same collection. Here they are side by side, and honestly, yes, I can see a difference between the two of them. Since they're both kind of orange leaning red creams, I do still find it strange to have them both in the same release. I kind of wish one was more blue toned. And now we have Feelin Fire, which OPI describes as a fiery orange. Feelin Fire also had a fantastic formula. I absolutely love this shade of orange. I feel like it's kind of skirting the line between like a summer appropriate orange and a fall orange. Honestly, I probably would have put this in a fall collection or maybe a transitional one, but I feel like that can be said for a lot of colors in this release as a whole, so let's just move on. Kind of overworked this polish here during the live swatch. I'm going to call this one a 2 to 3 coater depending on your application style. When I did my full-hand swatches, I was a perfectly opaque in 2 coats. I didn't overwork it, but as you can see here in the live swatch, if you overwork it, you're going to have to go in for 3 coats to cover up any kind of dark spots. Feelin Fire does seem to dry down a little bit darker than it initially applies. I feel like when you're looking at my nails next to the bottle, you can really see the color difference between how it looks in the bottle versus on the nails. The shade of this orange is kind of making me think of a winter squash. Not quite pumpkin, but something in the squash family is just the color this one's reminding me of. Of course, because this is a cream, it will remove very, very easily. And now we have Lookin Cute-icle, which OPI describes as a yellow nail polish. This had a really nice formula, especially for a yellow. It was a little bit on the thicker side, but I found overall it applied very smoothly and evenly. This is going to be one of those polishes that depending on your application, it's going to be a 2 to 3 coater. If you don't overwork it and you go in for like normal to thicker coats, you can definitely get this one in really nice even coverage in 2 coats. However, if you overwork it, you're going to need 3 coats. Yellow creams in general tend to be finicky, and I usually find that they are often 3 coaters anyway. For my full hand swatches, I had 2 nails that were good in 2 coats and 2 nails that really needed that 3rd coat. So these full hand swatches do show the polish in 3 coats overall. I really truly love the shade of yellow. Do I wish it was a lot brighter since this is a summer collection?
Yes! Definitely.
Yes, of course, but I do still think this is a really nice shade. It's like a slightly darker yellow. Oddly enough, I don't want to call this mustard for some reason, but I'm looking at various shades of mustard right now in Google Images, and I kind of feel like, yeah, this is in the mustard family. Generally find yellows to be polishes that just tend to stain natural nails, so as always, please make sure to wear base coat, and removal will be very easy with this one. And now we have BFFR. OPI describes this one as a bumbly yellow. This polish probably has one of my favorite names in the release, largely because I know what they meant by FFR and I kind of love that. This is a fairly light yellow shade. It's kind of in the pastel family, but I feel like it has this a little bit extra vibrancy to it that's not exactly a pastel yellow. Especially for a yellow shade, I honestly found the formula on this one to be really, really nice. Much like the other yellow shade in this release, I'm still going to call this one a 2 to 3 coater. My full hand swatches show this one in 3 coats across the board. I only had 1 nail that was actually good in 2 coats. I feel like this photograph's just slightly brighter than it actually is in person. Really hard time color correcting my swatch photos because I kept making it either too pastel or too gray. This video, I think the most color accurate representation to what my eyes were picking up in person is this shot here of my full hand swatch in the studio lighting. This is most close to what I was seeing in person. And now we have Pricele, which OPI describes as a rich green. I gotta say, there was a little bit of deja vu when I saw the name of this polish. In case you're not paying attention to the screen, OPI decided to spell this one with $signs for the S's. Using a $sign as an S was heavily featured in the spring collection. Polish had a pretty good formula. I'm gonna call this one another 2 to 3 coater depending on your application style. My full hand swatches do show this one in 2 coats, but with how I was applying during the live swatch, I can definitely see this being a potential 3 coater if you really overwork this one. I see greens like this and I immediately think of Kermit the Frog, so this is just gonna be Kermit the Frog green to me. Also found this has like a little bit of a yellow undertone to it, which I feel like adds to the almost pruggly nature of this color. I definitely appreciate. I love me an ugly green. And now we have Midnight Snacc, which OPI describes as a dark green. This is one shade where I looked at it, I was just like, what the hell is this doing in a summer collection? But oddly enough, I kind of like this a lot. I think I was having very much an off day in applying nail polish the day I recorded these live swatches. I feel like on that first coat for the live swatch, this looked like super uneven, patchy, and just not great. That was not at all my experience when I was doing my full hand swatches. I found coverage was pretty good on this one on that first coat. Not at all one coater territory, but overall very, very even. This self-leveled perfectly, and I found the formula to honestly be really fantastic. It's a super dark shade of green. I feel like it looks a little bit darker on the nail than it appears in the bottle as well. This gives off a lot of autumnal vibes. My full hand swatches do show this one in 2 coats plus glossy top coat. I did not personally experience any staying with this one, but again, it's super dark, very pigmented, which are 2 things that definitely equal staining for some folks, so make sure to wear base coat. And now we have Dream Come Blue, which OPI describes as a cobalt blue. This is a little light in my opinion to be called a cobalt blue. I think I would personally put it in the cornflower blue category. I wouldn't call this one a dupe for Sally Hansen's Pacific Blue. I think it's a little bit too light for that, but I feel like it's close in that same kind of family. Formula on this one was really nice, not too thick or too thin. I found it applied really nicely for me. My full hand swatches here show it in 2 coats plus glossy top coat. If you go in for fairly thin coats, you're going to notice it being really streaky on that first coat, but I found for the most part all the streaks disappeared on the second coat. But I do think if you go in for like incredibly thin coats, I really could see someone needing 3 coats with this one just to fix any kind of streakiness that you get from going really, really thin. But I was really happy with how this one looked on me in 2 coats. I do have a little ding on my pinky. That's just because I dinged my pinky nail on a top coat bottle when I was getting my swatches done. Next up is I Can Buy Myself Violets, which OPI describes as a bold violet. I'm having one of those color is very subjective moments. I just googled to see what color violet actually was because this was not the color violet that I was thinking of. And I am coming to the conclusion as I'm here looking at Google Images that people cannot decide what color violet actually is. For me personally, this is very much a pinky purple. It leans very warm pink to me. I do still would classify this in the purple family, but like it leans very heavily towards pink. The formula on this one was really good, not too thick or too thin. It had surprisingly really even coverage on that first coat. Not a 1-coater, but I do think after a couple of uses, I could see this one being a 1-coater for some folks. This one also does dry down a little bit darker than it initially applies. While this is not really a color that I gravitate super strongly towards, I do think between the formula and application being so good, if you don't already have a color like this and you want one, not a bad one to pick out. And now we have Purrrride. I can't roll my R's. There's a lot of R's in here. I feel like I should be rolling my R's to say this one, but I cannot. OPI describes this one as a dark brown. Purrrride had a fantastic formula. It was surprisingly sheer on the first coat. However, I did find that I was able to reach full opacity with it in 2 coats. When I was doing my full hand swatches, I did go back and forth trying to see if it was really that even. I couldn't tell if my eyes were playing tricks on me or if I was actually seeing a little bit of lightness here. I think I am still gonna call this one good in 2 though. I generally find browns to pull very warm / red on my skin tone, just thanks to my undertones, but thankfully I did not get lobster hands at all with this one. Even though I do wish that this collection had more bright colors in it, I do still really appreciate getting a nice dark brown. So that is Purrrride in 2 coats plus glossy top coat. And the final polish in the main part of the collection is called As Real As It Gets. OPI describes this one as a pure white nail polish. I strongly disagree with calling this one a pure white. It seems to be like a very, very pale gray. I honestly expected this one to apply as a chalky mess, but it does not at all. But I do also think it does require a little bit of finesse for application. I think this one's going to be a very strong 2 or 3 coater depending on your application style. When I was doing my full hand swatches, I had 1 nail that was like actually perfect in 2 coats, and all the rest of my nails definitely needed that 3rd coat. Like I said, number of coats is definitely going to depend on your own personal application style. This isn't really the color for me personally. I feel like I never wear white nail polish, but I think this one would be good for people who like really pale grays or dingy whites. So that was the first half of this collection. As I mentioned earlier in this video, there are 9 shades in this release that are exclusive to the OPI Infinite Shine line. All of the Infinite Shine polishes are shimmer polishes, and in my opinion, probably the most interesting colors in the entire release. There seems to be 2 main formulations in the Infinite Shine line. We have a sheer shimmer and then a slightly more opaque shimmer. And I do want to stress one more time, even though the Infinite Shine line is referred to as a gel-like line, These are not gel polish, they air dry just like regular lacquers. I've had people ask before if the Infinite Shine line gives better wear time. According to OPI, it does. I honestly have never noticed a difference in wear time for me personally between the Infinite Shine line and the regular polish line. One way to differentiate between the regular polish line and the Infinite Shine line is that the Infinite Shine line has these nice little silver caps and the regular line has these black caps. I did notice on OPI social media pages that they did talk about that they recently revamped the Infinite Shine formula, and you can tell if you have the old formula versus the new formula based on the label on the bottle. On the right here, this is what the new labels look like on the new formulas, and then on the left is what the old formulas look like. I really like the labeling on the new ones, honestly, but I will admit it is a little bit frustrating that I have both formulations in the same release. First up from the Infinite Shine collection, we have Feelin Myself. OPI describes this one as a long-lasting, shimmering, hot pink. Feelin Myself had a fantastic formula. This is one of the more sheer polishes, but not the most sheer of the entire release. I chose to build this one up in 3 coats, but I'm still going to call it a 2 to 3 coater. You do get a little bit more opacity when you build this one up in 3 coats. However, you still will have some visible nail line with it. So like, I don't really think the 3rd coat is 100% necessary. I was honestly just curious to see how opaque it was going to get. All of these summer vibes that were missing from the main part of collection are all going to be in all of these polishes. I absolutely love this shade of pink. The shimmer in here is a yellowish orangey kind of color. Is it the most in-your-face shimmer that I've ever seen in my life? No. But it is still really, really pretty. That is Feelin Myself in 3 coats plus glossy top coat. The shimmer in here is not going to dry down textured, but it will make removal a bit more messy. And now we have Self Love. That's a lot of extra O's. OPI describes this as a long-lasting, shimmery candy red. Where the reds in the main part of the release were just way too orange leaning, this is that perfect shade of candy red. On the first coat, it looked like this had like a little bit of a pink lean to it, but I found once I built this one up, I was not seeing any pink. Like, it is just a true red. This is going to be another one that I'm going to call a 2 to 3 coater depending on your personal preference. I do not foresee this one being able to reach full opacity, even if you build it up in 3 coats. My full swatches show it in 2 coats. I kind of came to the conclusion while I was swatching the Infinite Shine polishes, once I saw that these ones are going to be a bit more sheer, I decided that unless the polish like really needed a 3rd coat, I was just going to stop in 2. Coverage overall was very even with this one, so I didn't see the point in adding a 3rd coat. I feel like OPI used the same shimmer across the board for all of these polishes, or at least very similar shimmers, so it's not the most in-your-face shimmery moment, but still very, very pretty. It will not make removal difficult, just a little bit messy, and I did not personally experience any staining. And now we have You're the Zest, which OPI describes as a long-lasting orange shimmer. You're the Zest had a good formula. This one was, however, a little bit on the thicker side. Not so thick that it was difficult to use, just like a little bit thicker than the polishes that were more sheer. While I wouldn't call this one a super sheer polish, I did, however, still have visible nailing with it. This is a very vibrant and juicy shade of orange. There's a lot of warmth in this shade of orange, and I found it for sure looked a lot more red leaning on me, just again, undertones. I did not find it was lobster hand territory for me personally, but like it for sure looked super, super warm on me. The shimmer plays so nicely paired with this base color. I feel like it's looking very like yellowy golden, and it's just a very bright, summery, and happy shade. So that is You're the Zest in 2 coats plus glossy top coat. Once again, I did not personally experience any staining, but I really feel like this is a potential stainer, so make sure to wear some damn base coat. And now we have Funshine, which OPI describes as a shimmery golden yellow. I gotta say, I'm a little surprised that the word Funshine isn't trademarked to whoever owns the Care Bears.
That's weird.
Funshine had a fantastic but fairly sheer formula. For the live swatch, I only did 2 coats. However, my full swatches do show this one in 3 coats. I will still call it a 2 to 3 coater depending on personal preference, but I do think you get a little bit more depth in the base if you add that 3rd coat. I absolutely love this shade of yellow, especially in the bottle. Once I got it on my nails and I saw how sheer it was, I was a little concerned on that 1st coat, but once I got this one built up, I actually ended up liking it quite a bit. I'd say OPI did a really good job describing the color on this one. It's a very golden, sunshiny kind of yellow. I find myself being really picky when it comes to sheer yellows because I feel like more times than not, it just makes your nails look like you have some kind of medical illness or like really badly stained nails. So So I think I would have probably hated this one if it didn't have the shimmer, but with the shimmer, it's just a really, really pretty color. So that is Funshine in 3 coats plus glossy top coat. Once again, super easy removal, but fairly messy. Next up, we have Limelight, which OPI describes as a long-lasting shimmery green. Limelight is in essence the green version to Funshine, so it is another one that's fairly sheer, so you definitely want to build it up to get some opacity going. However, this is not the polish to get fully opaque. You will definitely have visible nail line with this one. On that first coat, I had a little trepidations because I thought it looked so butt ugly. But once I got this one built up in 3 coats, I actually ended up liking it quite a bit. I do think the actual base color of this one is a lime green, but I also do think that the shimmer in here, since it's that yellowy golden color we've been seeing, I do think that the shimmer makes this lean a little bit chartreuse leaning in some lighting. But I stand on, this is not chartreuse, this is definitely a lime green. So that is Limelight in 3 coats plus a glossy top coat. I do think this one does benefit from that 3rd coat. I feel like you get a little bit more depth in the base with the 3rd coat, but you don't have to if you really don't want to. And now we have Sheen Stealer, which OPI describes as a shimmery teal. So there are 2 shades in this release that I can see people calling a teal. I would say this is the more green leaning teal. The next one that's going to be coming up is more blue leaning. Formula on this one was once again really fantastic, just slightly on the thicker side, but still very easy to work with. As far as opacity goes, once again, I do have some visible nail line with this polish, but I do think this is still the more opaque version that I was seeing within the Infinite Shine polishes. Try to kind of name the finish. I'd say this is a bit more crelly leaning, and then the more sheer ones are more jelly leaning. I don't think OPI has ever called their polishes crelly, so that's just my personal opinion on that one. While I am not generally very much for a green leaning teal lover, I did still think once again that the base color paired with the shimmer just looked really, really pretty. Words really cannot describe how relieved I feel that none of the shimmers in this release are actually pearlescents. So that is Sheen Stealer in 2 coats plus a glossy top coat. Once again, super easy removal, but a little bit messy due to the shimmer. Next up is On Cloud 9, which OPI describes as an aqua blue shimmer. I would not personally call this one a teal, but I feel like I could see someone calling it a teal. I would agree with OPI that this is in the aqua family. I have a side-by-side of this one next to Sheen Stealer because I kind of feel like if you don't see them side by side, you're going to think that they're the exact same polish. This is one of the shades that I ended up swatching in 3 coats before I realized that none of these really get truly fully opaque. I will call this one a 2 to 3 coated depending on how you feel about visible nail line. There's not a huge jump in opacity or the depth of color that you get for this one between 2 and 3 coats. I like the base color on this one a lot more than I initially thought that I would. Because the base on this one is so blue leaning, I did find that the yellow shimmer does make this one look like it's green shimmer. And here is the side by side of On Cloud Fine versus Sheen Stealer. I feel like I really do like the base color of On Cloud Fine a lot more, but you can see here they're not that similar. Next up is I Deserve The Whirl, which OPI describes as a shimmery sky blue. And now we're back to the more jelly leaning formulas. Formula on this one was fantastic, not too thick or too thin. Because this is one of the more jelly leaning ones, I would recommend building this one up in 3 coats. I suppose I could call it passable in 2 coats, but I just feel with the 3rd coat you get a lot more depth in the base color, and I just feel like it looks a little bit better with that 3rd coat, but the 3rd coat is not going to bring you to full opacity. You will still have very obvious visible nail line. I really like this shade of blue. I wouldn't call it a sky blue. I feel like it's a little bit too saturated to be a sky blue, but it's not saturated enough that I would call it, say, cobalt blue. I feel like a medium blue would work well with this one. It definitely gives off summer vibes, and that yellowy shimmer does look a little bit green because of the blue base color. So that is I Deserve The Whirl in 3 coats plus a glossy top coat. Once again, super easy removal, but a little bit messy due to the shimmer. And the final polish in the collection is called My Own Bestie. OPI describes this one as a shimmery violet. Much like the last polish that was called violet, this still is not the color I think of when I think of violet.
You know, that's just my opinion. Everybody got an opinion, everybody got something to say.
But I recognize that some people do. It is a very pinky purple. Formula on this one was really good, not too thick or too thin. My Own Bestie is the most opaque polish out of all of the Infinite Shine polishes. I think if you added a 3rd coat with this one, you might be able to reach full opacity with it. Personally, I really liked coverage on this one in 2 coats, but I had just like a little hint of nail line peeking through. Shimmer adds a really nice touch to this one. Still not my preferred shade as far as purples go, but I can't lie and say it's not really pretty. So that is My Own Bestie in 2 coats plus glossy top coat. Alrighty, so final thoughts. I will fully admit, when I initially saw spoilers for this release and saw that the main part of the collection was going to be all creams and then the Infinite Shine line were going to be more specialty looking polishes, I was really disappointed. I am kind of really wanting like bright, fun summeriness, and while I will say this collection did not give me bright, fun summeriness, the part of me that sees a rainbow and instantly falls in love was very pleased with this color story. And I was also really pleased with how nicely all the polishes applied. Like, these were all fantastic. I do feel like for the main part of the collection, the reds were way too similar, honestly. Like, I can see a color difference between them. There's also a little bit of opacity difference, but I feel like they're way too similar to be in the same collection. And so while there is some disappointment that this isn't bright and summery, my love for rainbows is overriding my general grumpiness on these not being brighter. And I also do appreciate that since OPI gave us this really nice rainbow release, according to promotion that I've seen thus far from OPI, the polishes sold in this collection will be going towards the Trevor project.
Talk, Valentina. I lie.
Which I feel like is a really nice touch as well, so like I'm not mad at it. I went into swatching these really thinking that I was gonna hate the collection, and I'm just pleasantly surprised at how much I ended up really enjoying it. The formulas were all fantastic. We have a rainbow. Some portion of sales I assume are going to be going to charity, which I feel like is always really nice. I feel like those of you who do, you know, partake in Pride, every year we see folks, you know, putting out Pride releases without actually donating a damn thing.
Trash.
So I feel like I really do appreciate that OPI is in fact donating something from this release. As far as my personal top picks, I feel like these are going to be pretty easy for people to guess. My top pick is going to be Dream Come Blue. I just really enjoy this shade of blue. It's really pretty. It's not as bright as my usual preference towards cobalt blues, but I feel like it's just bright enough to hold my interest. Next top pick is going to be Priceless, largely because this just reminds me of Kermit the Frog. I like the Muppets. My surprise top pick is actually going to be Funshine. In the bottle, I thought this was really pretty. On that first coat, I had some questions, but built up, can you guys not fight, please? But built up in 3 coats, I actually ended up liking this one quite a bit, even though it was particularly sheer. And I gotta say, words cannot describe how happy I am that OPI gave us some shimmers that were not pearlescent.
Yeah, baby.
So the fact that we have shimmer shades that are actually shimmery, and I feel like these are really nice shimmers as well. I mean, they could have been shifty shimmers. Yeah, sure, that would have been better. But I feel like these were shimmery and pretty enough that I actually really did enjoy them. And also, I do want to give a honorable mention to the one brown shade in this release. I feel like browns don't often get released in Pride releases, so I just wanted to give a special shout out to the brown because like I always really like brown creams. I honestly didn't realize I like brown creams nearly as much until I started swatching. And yeah, brown creams make me happy. So I'd love to know what everyone else thought of this release. Are you planning on picking it? Have you already picked it up? I always love hearing from folks on what they really enjoy from these releases. So before we end today's video, I do want to give a very special shout out to my channel members, Shenanigang. Just thank you guys so much for the love and support. Names, of course, all on the screen right now. If you would like to sign up for my channel memberships, I have a link for that in the description box, or you can just click the join button, which is next to the subscribe button. If you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to give it a big ol' like. It really does help the channel out a lot. Thank you all for joining me for today's video. Truly hope you enjoyed it. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to my second channel. Alright, bye!
When I get high, I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah.